I connect with God and a higher love. It takes care of me. I connect with God and a higher love. I connect with God and a higher love. It takes care of me. I connect with God and a higher love. We connect with God and a higher love. It takes care of us. And so it is. Woo! Good morning, good day, everyone. Ooh, bring a little tear to my eye. How are you? That was so guided. I just did my Kriya Yoga, pranayama, in my meditation right before the show. And while I was meditating, my higher self was like, you're going to sing the God song. You're going to sing the God song. So who am I? Who am I to say no? Blessings, Will. Namaste. I always feel so grateful when you are able to be here, which is a lot of the time. So thank you so much for your support. And thank you, everybody out there, all of the new subscribers, everyone who stops by for this live stream to drop in. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you, over the course of this live stream, resonate with the topics, with the information, with me, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, and you'll be notified of further videos. I am so very, very, very grateful. I just posted this morning our weekly tarot for, I think it's August 16th through the 24th. And there is this sense of this, we're coming into a completion of this cycle of, and maybe you haven't been feeling it, but for me, there has just been a cycle of this DNA detox, of this absolute recalibration in alignment with the eclipses, retrograde, and all the work that we've been doing for ourselves and on ourselves and within ourselves. And I feel like many, many nights of not sleeping well, many, many days of just sobbing and just crying, you know, from being tired, from being emotionally kind of like recalibrated, and also because we are changing from the inside. This is 4D Trinity. And on this live stream, we learn how to bridge heaven on earth through the unity, through creating unification of the mind, the body, and the emotions, so that we mystically, magically, divinely align with the blueprint of spirit, when the mind, the emotions, and the body are divinely aligned with the truth of you, with the heart of you. You naturally align with the spirit of you. If you watch me and these shows, then you'll know that what I teach is that your spirit, and interestingly enough, your soul, because today's theme of this 4DT is Dark Night of the Soul. But you know that what I teach here is that your spirit and your soul is unfuckable with. And that really, the divine blueprint of your blessed matrix here in the world and on this earth are contained there. But also, who and what you are beyond this world and beyond this earth is also contained in the wholeness of your soul, in the fullness of your spirit, and that can never be messed with. That can never be taken away from you. It is yours inherently. It is your divine birthright and gift, and we all have it. You see, and so when we align and calibrate the physical, the 3D aspects of ourself, that being the mind, the body, the emotions, when we heal, we align, we cleanse, we clear, we do things that are going to help us come into relaxing, into peace, into our true nature, we naturally become amplified beings of light or potential, because at that moment we are divinely aligned with soul, with spirit. And remember, yes, there is an individual spirit, an individual soul that you may reflect upon, that you may feel is yours. And it is. Throughout certain dimensions, yet beyond the dimensions, beyond this idea of the separation of places and spaces and dimensions where there's different pockets of things going on, beyond and through that, you are whole, you are one. We are whole, we are one. And this morning, the God song that came through, you know, if you watch the show and you, or even if you just watched the tarot, I know I believe I speak on it a bit, where this word God, and I talk about it in my book, How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration, because I say the word God maybe only 2 times in it, but I also have a little asterisk, and down at the bottom, what I explain is that because in the book, there's a paragraph where I talk about Christ, Buddha, and God. And I've capitalized Christ and I've capitalized Buddha, but I didn't capitalize God. And I know some people get kind of like confused or flustered about that. And so I explain as a footnote in the book that it seems to be that Christ and Buddha were deemed to be actual beings, people who were here on the earth, who were here. And so this being their name of many names for these characters, let it be capitalized. Yet the word God, to me, and we all are allowed to have whatever feeling realization we want about it, but to me it is a feeling realization. And it is the absolute awareness, knowing, and alignment of that which is love and only love. That which is love without an opposite. The feeling realization. God is the feeling realization of love and only love. The feeling realization of that oneness, of that unity that comes when there's no fear, when there's no opposite to love. And we're going to break this down. I don't know how long today's show is going to be. It could be a couple hours or more. I have both boards full of notes, and I even have some notes in the book that we will be reviewing. But I think it's interesting, this term God and all of these terms that we use, because what we recognize is that we are redefining, we are recalibrating our language of light. You know, when you start to get into like spiritual stuff and you're like, ooh, like even just like this term DNA detox came to me yesterday in my meditation before I recorded the tarot upload this week. And I was like, ooh, what's that about? I like that. And I bet you now it's like it's going to be a term that we use. It's like, oh yeah, this resonates. Light body, right? Even the word meditation. Maybe there was a point in your life where you never said the word meditation, and now you're like, I got to meditate every day. But this language of light, these new words that we start to move into our vocabulary, connect us to new experiences, to different experiences. And you'll have to pardon me. It's so like anywhere else in the day, but sometimes here on the show. It's the tears of, no, I was going to say something funny, like, you know, those statues that cry and people are like, is it just a leak from the roof coming down and making a tear, or is it like real manna from heaven kind of stuff? Which is very interesting. Okay, so side note, I just started watching, I'm only about halfway through, but there is a very amazing documentary on YouTube. I'll have to go back and I'll come back later and I'll put a link to it down under all my links below in the show more box. But it's got Deepak Chopra and this other dude and like all these amazing, Marianne Williamson, these people speaking in on it. Even Joel Osteen, who I love. They make fun of me, but I love that. I love that preacher. Talking about manna from heaven, talking about psilocybin, talking about DMT, and a little ayahuasca conversation. Very, very, very amazing. So side note, it's so cool. I will come back and put a link later to it. So anyway, because what is this all about? This is all about recognizing our multidimensional nature. And to me, that's the God, right? But it's your multidimensional nature, again, that has no opposite of love. That's the trinary. That's the true trinary, which, again, we're going to get into this afternoon. But I did want to explain to you, especially if you're new here, that fourth dimensional consciousness is the consciousness that radiates from your heart. Even if there's a bunch of pain, even if there's a bunch of stress and there's sorrow and there's trauma and there's victimization and violence and whatever all the stuff of the world could be, even if you feel your heart has been broken, torn apart into a million pieces, there's a consciousness and a value that is eternal, aka unfuckable with, in the wisdom of your heart space. And your heart is what bridges you to heaven, is what, when we allow ourselves to honor with integrity the truth, the guidance, the divine wisdom of the heart, which is always about allowing you to have the best life ever, you to step with courage into the true aspects of you. When we honor that, little by little or with big leaps and bounds, we connect the dots of creation within us, those parts of us that have been seemingly separated, and we become whole in the light of love. And we bridge heaven on earth through the crystalline tube, through the chakras, through the physical being, through our consciousness, through every level of us. And what came to me this week, when I was sitting, you know, I sit, and sometimes I don't have ideas for 4DT, and it's like the night before or the morning of where I'm kind of scrambling, and I'm like, okay, universe, help. 24-hour period, bloop, like my higher self would be like, bloop, next week you're going to talk about bloop. And this whole, what we're going into today was like right away after last week's, I was like, oh, we gotta bridge into Dark Night of the Soul. And so it's been sitting with me, it's been marinating with me all week. And when I think about, you know, when I talk to people about what is 4D, because people are like, what's 4D Trinity? What does that even mean? You know, what we get to think about is that fourth dimensional consciousness. And I feel like I'm not really saying it, but my higher self wants me to say it. And so tell me if you resonate, especially those students of mine, dear friends, you know, fellow participants on this path. But what I was shown is that this one way to think about 4D consciousness, which is that wisdom of your heart, that is Christ consciousness, right? And I know we kind of dipped into that last week a little bit, but what I was shown this week is that it's the training wheels for what goes, if there is an above and beyond, fourth dimension. You know, you have 5D, 6D, people talking all this stuff, but eventually, honey, if you get up in the D's high enough, then you're not going to be here on the world anymore. So we're talking about the containment, the container as such, in this body, in these world experiences, and how enlightened we can live, receive, bless, and be blessed while we're in a body here on this planet, right? And yes, multidimensionally, through dream time, through your medicine journeys, you know, and through altered states of consciousness, be they through laying in a isolation flotation tank or your own meditation. Yet there's a sense of that boldness of Christ, of living like fiercely from truth, fiercely from love, from self-love, unabashedly. For you, but knowing that it serves always, the truth in your heart always serves the highest good of all. And that is like a stepping stone, right, into this realm of Christ consciousness. Because what is 5D? What is 6D? What are all of these, we had a show last month, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance, psychic powers, intuition, being an empath, and, having these telepathic abilities. But what is the use of all that stuff if it's not rooted in love, if it's not anchored in the wisdom of the heart? What is it? Marianne Williamson says it's just magic versus a miracle, right? Because a miracle is when we get out of the way and we just allow sacred space for it to come. It's not us trying to force and manifest it by thy own will. And so that's what we're doing here. We're learning, right? My job is to help you learn how to heal your life through the practice of self-mastery. And self-mastery is all about us learning how to love ourselves more and more on the inside and all the ways that we experience ourselves on the outside of what we think is the outside of this body, of this mind. And so we learn how to master these aspects of self and bring them into alignment under grace so that we can experience peace. Right? I know in this week's tarot, I'm laughing through it, but I really did have a tough couple months here. These cycles changing, and how have you been? And it's funny because I know a couple of folks who, funny enough, one girl got her, a yoga student of mine just recently got her Karuna Reiki master level attunement, and then another student of mine received with me her master level, like in July. And I know these ladies have had a few little bumps, but it's so funny too, because it's as if their attunement has lifted them above the turbulence of the Mercury retrograde and the crazy eclipse stuff. And not to say they didn't have a few bumps on the road, but it's so funny. It's like their vibration, their frequency has been like so turned up through their attunements that they're just like, ooh, what's wrong with everyone? We're all like zombie land. And they're just like, la, 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 coasting through it. So I know it's not for everyone, that everyone hasn't been necessarily feeling the depths of the, emotional turmoil as such. But I know I have, and I bless it, and I'm grateful because I definitely feel that we are coming into the shift now. It's like I feel like, oh, there's the to turn a corner. We're about to turn the corner, but we're still marinating, releasing, calibrating, right? From these DNAs, having this shift. So DNA detox and dark night of the soul. We've been talking about learning, and I'm speaking specifically, I'm threading in the work that we've been doing in the tarot, because, tarot, it might seem like, oh, it's a little tarot card reading, how fun. But there's some real knowledge, there's some real wisdom in the divinity of the guidance that comes through those sessions. I do them and I post them, and then I generally will go back and I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh my God, like it's there for all of us, including myself. And I don't have planned what I'm going to talk about. It's all, just divinely channeled. And so going back and looking in, we realize that, like, wow, there's been this process over these couple weeks. And even if you haven't, and even if you don't watch the tarot readings, it doesn't matter. Because I'll explain to you what we've been going through is this learning how to really attune to that truth in the heart and honor, say yes to the opportunities, the people, the places, the situations that are in resonance with that truth that bring us further into, and learning how to say, no, thank you. under grace to those people, places, things, situations, addictions, patterns, cycles, etc., that keep us bound to the old DNA structures, to the old ways that DNA have been running our life, the blueprint that has been running our life. These eclipses are sort of, they've turned off the lights and turned them back on. Unplugged us, unplugged the universe, unplugged the planet, and have plugged it back in. And with it, our DNA is like, right? And so there's this chance for everything to shut off. And we've been doing such tremendous work. Any work that you've been doing at all is tremendous work. Anything that you've been doing in way of cultivating self-love, journaling, doing your breathing, hugging trees, eating better, exercising more, not being so hard on yourself, not being so hard on others. You know, it's like, it's this whole ecosystem of like how to be kind. And we're learning, right? We're learning how to just relax and be kinder to ourselves and to others, just with grace, just extending grace, which is a big one. It feels so good. Doesn't it feel good not to have all the prickly, rickly, nagging, bitching, moaning, judging stuff? And not to say that we walk around like that, yet as much of a meditator as I am, and a Reiki master, yoga teacher, healer, counselor, all these things, I'm still human. And generally, I've learned how to reach the arc where I can coast under grace. I can coast. I can see, because when you can see, I can see because of the experience that I've garnered of healing my life over the years. So when there's a bump in the road, I'm like, oh, I've been here before. I'm not like shock. It's going to just take me down for 5 months and I'm going to be all, you know, although, you know, life has its things. I know we were talking about this stuff last week, but generally it gets easier and easier and easier. The dark night of the soul, the DNA detox, the shifts that we go through, especially as we really step up and work with them as those dark nights of the soul happen, work with our healing as it comes up for healing. And so in that way, it becomes easier and easier and easier when you hit a bump in the road, when an old pattern comes up for healing, when someone in your family or a dear person in your life that you've had some scuffles, some issues with, when something comes up to be communicated and cleared, it becomes easier and easier because on one hand, you've had the experience, you've done it before. On the other hand, you've grown synapses within yourself of possibility, of probability, so you know how to do it on some level. And the more you do it, like a bicep curl, right? Marianne always talks about that. You strengthen your spiritual musculature. But the more that you practice being kind to yourself, working on your issues, you know, the less scary it becomes. And I think the more that we do not step into the ring of fire, then it's hella hard. And that's why you're a warrior right in the beginning. You don't have to be a warrior for the rest of your life. Once you have been a warrior, though, I mean, you have your warrior stripes. And those will never be taken away. But we learn that we don't have to walk with that warrior aspect, you know, constantly seeing through the lenses of the warrior. There may be a period where you have to really step up into your pain, into your shadow, into your tar, into your dark side, dark night of the soul, and meet yourself there and do the work in that place. But man, and that's where your like warriorness becomes activated, because it's scary and it takes courage. And understanding, and thank you, Will, because a couple weeks ago you brought this word back into my orbit and it has been with me, but this aspect of accumulation, where we are accumulating whatever it is, light or dark, but over time. We often say that time is an illusion here, yet on a 3D we exist in this layer of dimension. Oh honey, there's time, and you know it. You know it when you're waiting for a check to come to be posted to your bank. You know there's time. And you got bills to pay. But ultimately, we accumulate all of the ways that we've been practicing loving ourselves, practicing healing, practicing gently peeling back the layers of what is this issue, or what is the root of this, or just even just little by little venturing to get closer to forgiving someone, or getting closer to opening the door into looking and seeing what's in here. Where can things change for the better? Where can I be more loving towards myself and towards others? And as we do that, we build up a momentum, an accumulation of all of this healing work. And then what happens is then we have these eclipses, we have these planetary divine alignments, these shifts that happen. And some, I know, maybe not all of you are really feeling it, but for some of us, it's extraordinary. The power of these situations, and you'll know it. You can't force it. If it's not extraordinarily powerful to you, you know, you just do what you're divinely guided to do in and amongst that, you know, that arc of eclipse. Or I can feel this, something, it's definitely shifting. This is when, again, unplug, plug back in, lights out, lights back on. And we talk about this Rubik's cubing, right? Think about your old classes in school when you would, what would it be, biology? I think it's biology. When you imagine, or we've seen pictures, right, of DNA, those little baubles with the little links, chain, like kind of a chain connecting helix, right? And through the momentum and the accumulation of all the work that we've been done and all the prayers that you've prayed, and all the ways that you've called in spirit, all the ways you've called in your angels, all the way you've called in the help, the healing of loved ones that have passed this life, all the ways you've called on your totems, all the ways you've practiced Reiki on yourself, right? All the times you've done self-healing, all the times you've meditated, all the times you've chosen love over fear. That accumulates as this power, this force of love within you. And then when these eclipses happen and we are working with that energy, and often you don't even need to be working with the energy. That energy will be working with you for the highest good to the degree that it serves. But there's this shift. And we've been talking about how the DNAs that no longer serve the pattern, the blueprint of you, of the truth of you, when those old victim patterns, cycles of belief in lack of finances, lack of time, lack of money, lack of love, lack of support, self-hate, self-doubt, fear of success, all that stuff. As we work on that, and as these eclipses come, we are met with the accumulation of all that work that we've done. And the DNAs that no longer fit to the new version, the 5.0 version of you, of who you know yourself to truly be inside, the butterfly that is broken from the cocoon version of you. The DNA of the caterpillar that you once were doesn't work with the DNA of the butterfly. It's a whole different calibration, if you will. And so that's why that larva creates a cocoon and it's like, I am out, pulls up the covers, goes to sleep for a while, and lets this regeneration. The DNA changes. And the recalibration of this new version of this being becomes connected. Those dots of aspects come connected to being a butterfly. And so I'm just kind of making this up, but it sounds right. It sounds resonant, I will say. It totally resonates. That's like what's happening to us. And so we, through our work, the accumulation of all this stuff, when the eclipses happen, when there's a divine grand alignment that's going to really take everything, like a big bulldozer, take everything, all the work that you've done, and move it from here over to here. You know when a tractor, you've seen road work or you've seen houses being built maybe, and a tractor comes and scoops up a big chunk of dirt and it like, it moves it over here to like dump it over here. You can imagine, right? It's scooped up the dirt and it's moving it over to here. But you know how there's bits and pieces that fall off, maybe a few rocks tumble off the side and they don't make it to the new location over here. Well, it's those bits of rocks and sand and dust and all that stuff that's fallen off en route to this new destination. That's the DNA detox. That's the stuff that we have been feeling the funk with en route to this aspect of becoming this butterfly, this aspect of going through this dark night of the soul. And because those are old patterns, again, whether it be the victim not feeling supported, all fear-based systems of belief that have fallen to the wayside, that do not serve and that are just not going to compute to the version of you of where you're going to rest now and live now and speak from and see from and perceive from. Those aspects that are not in attunement and alignment with all of those prayers that you've been calling on, with all of this connecting with your higher self you've been doing, all this Reiki, this healing that you've been doing. That which does not resonate as that is those little bits of sand and dirt falling off to the side. And we get to process that, just like how when you do your healing, and you feel the emotions, you feel the stuff that you hadn't felt before. And that's why it's hard to do our healing work too, because we're like, I don't really want to feel that. No, I'm good. I don't need to massage. I don't need to get a massage because I know it's just going to open up pain, or it's going to bring me back into the fear. I don't want to see a healer because then I'd have to really start looking at some stuff. And it's okay. We're ready when we're ready. Yet, ready or not, it's on when these planetary alignments happen. And so this aspect of the dark night of the soul is something we get to really pay attention to with regard to, this is something that you have asked for. And remember, the soul is unfuckable with. As we talked about at the very beginning of this presentation, the soul is the spirit, I believe. It's like 2 in 1 the same. And it cannot be fissured, it cannot be cracked, it cannot be sold. Granted, there are stories that we tell ourselves and dramas that we play out in the 3D where it may seem very real, that you've sold your soul to the devil, yet it's not true. That's what I'm here to tell you anyway. And so the dark night is you. The dark night is the tar body version of you. And it's where the tar body version of you, that being the collection of toxins, of fear, healed, all that is suppressed in us and through us, all of that stuff that we've been working on healing, all those bits and pieces, those layers, and all the pain and the stuff that's just in there that we walk with, that becomes the dark night. That becomes the tar body. And when these planets align and we've been praying and asking, and then there's like, whoo, we get to meet ourselves as the soul. You, as your higher self, your light body, unfuckable with. You get to remember that that's your true nature. So that as you meet the dark night, and really it is meeting, as you meet that part of yourself, that's what brings the tears. That's what brings the emotion. That's what brings the detox, because you're just like looking at yourself going like, wow. And there is a grieving. And I know you wrote a comment or two here, Will. I'm going to read it here in a moment. But there's a grieving period, right? You know, when you've lost someone that you really love, a pet even, or a person dear to you, a family member. There's a mourning, there's a grieving process that happens. And so like that, even though we're done with those old DNAs, we've been going through this dark night of the soul. We've been going through the light body, your soul, the perfection of you, waving bye-bye to the dark night. Bye-bye. And we've asked for this, remember. So let me look at these comments. The processing is the dark night. The fire we have to sit in. I love that. The processing is the dark night. Yeah, it's quite an initiation, isn't it? If there's anyone else that's here, I'd be so grateful if you dropped a little hello in the comment box. Very, very grateful. And thank you so much, Will. I'm so glad you're able to hang out today. Absolutely. It's that, like that, it's the detox. It's that burning off. It's those veils of illusion off. And you know, while there's grieving and there's mourning and there's like, it's like, I remember I've been in relationships before where you're in a relationship and you're together for however long and you start feeling like, I have a future with this person. And you, in your mind, you're like, wow. And then we can, like, in 5 years and down the line, maybe we'll have a house or we'll have a kid or I don't know, whatever the dream might be for you, right? But you kind of make plans. And then something devastating happens, the relationship breaks up and there's a period, especially if you had some kind, if you were invested and there was a sincere investment there where you're saying, oh, even though you know the relationship is over and it's time for this shift, there still can very possibly be that grieving period, that mourning period, that period of recalibration, of burning through the patterns of who you thought you were with this person, of where your life was going to go with this person. Gosh, now I think about it, it's happened to me. Like every single relationship. That's why I'm on a relationship vacation right now. Okay, I'm just taking a vacation. But it's like, you know, every single person that you've been with, you know, if it's been a longer term thing, you kind of, you dream a little, right? Maybe. And you create like, oh, a future, a possible future. And then when that possible future doesn't happen, you come back to you. And there's that detoxing, like the DNA detox of all the things. They ain't gonna be working out, honey, because they found someone else or because it's really over or because something changed in your heart or whatever the reason is. Blessings, Champagne. Hey, it's been a while. Thank you for hopping on today. Thank you for dropping a line in the comment box too. So yes, okay, so I have some notes, you know, and I did want to say, and I think we'll pull up the board maybe next week and we'll do some drawing and some writing on it behind me. But it's funny because I wrote Dark Night of the Soul all as one word together. And then I in the word soul, I square boxed the O and the L. And it just made me think about how, because you know here at 4D Trinity, we talk a lot about the trinary binary systems of consciousness that we live in. And we are going to get into that because last week we are all Neos, which was totally inspired by this Esoteric Life podcast, which I love. And we're gonna review some of our Neo Matrix levels of consciousness, red pill, blue pill stuff. But first we're gonna dip into this, our main theme here, Dark Night of the Soul. And I love that how in the word soul, I was like, oh, there's a 0 and there's a 1, you know, with the L and the O. And remembering that what I teach is that there is this aspect of learning to become one. And once we learn to become one, right, through healing, through practicing love, service, compassion, meditation, all these beautiful things, and infinite ways really that you can have that experience and generate that as a feeling realization. But as you come into that oneness, that is when we are given entryway into 0 point, into the 0 point, the land of zero, which is the entryway to trinary, which is the place that we exist in on the levels of consciousness where there is love and only love, what we were talking about earlier. Christ consciousness, 4D. moving beyond the polarities of the 3D of this world that we are told is the only level that we exist, the only place that we are, and that's the extent of us is our body. So what's happening as we experience this dark night of the soul is that we get to remember that we are entering the light and that this is an initiation. All the stuff, as Will's saying, that we're processing, that we're burning off, all these things, all those bits of dust and dirt that have fallen as our DNAs are shifting and Rubik's cubing and calibrating is an initiation, because you know, if you've detoxed from anything, whether it's be cigarettes or sugar or alcohol or negative thoughts or an ex-lover that you know you're just in a cycle and a pattern of abuse or something, when you detox from people, places, and things, you know there's like, ooh, you can get a little funky, you can get a little not so purdy or emotional or all of it. You get just darn sloppy and ugly. And it's okay. But this is a part of the initiation. It's almost like the release of those old DNAs, the release of all those old patterns and habits, and the parts of you that thought it was okay to continue being in that relationship that was abusing you. The parts of you that thought that were just unconscious with how much sugar you were having in your body, or how much caffeine or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, that when that shifts and you're like, oh, there is a thing such as moderation, there is a thing such as balance, there is a thing such as breaking a habit, breaking the pattern. As Joe Dispenza says, breaking the habit of being yourself, which is what we're doing. But we've been used to being that version of ourselves. And so this dark night of the soul is like, you're a different version of you. The Godfather? The Godfather! Hello? Hello? Dear God, I was talking about you at the beginning of the show today. God says hi, everyone. Yeah, I don't know. You keep coming, and in this week's tarot, you keep coming in these. I guess I said something that I didn't know I was going to say, but that's in alignment with what we always say, what you always say, that you are the feeling realization of oneness. But you were also telling me, or channeling through, that you are the feeling realization of love and only love. And I love that. So thank you for that. Yes, we're talking about the DNA, dark night of the soul, the Neo Matrix stuff. I know, it's so groovy, right? We are. No, I know, last week, we totally didn't even read. You wanted us to read something from the Alchemist's Handbook, and I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. God's all, psh, it's okay. Yes, I have it right here. Vibrational Medicine by Richard Gerber. We're going to read out of that a couple paragraphs on the DNA. I love that. But first, you want me to read, there's a little affirmation or two in here. That's what you wanted us to do last week? Okay, we'll read that. I'll do it right now so that I don't forget. God says namaste, everyone. Okay, blessings. Namaste. All right, the God phone. So, yes, as you know, if you watched last week, somehow I got through the whole broadcast without reading. And now let's see, where does God want us to go? He said something like 69. Aha. Ooh, okay, beautiful. So there's two affirmations, or they're kind of prayers that God is saying, just speak these. Okay, so we're going to go. Again, this is from the Alchemist's Handbook. This is by John Randolph Price. Page 68. The Creative Mother is now healing my mind of all false beliefs and error patterns, and is restoring and maintaining my body in perfect health. I like that. And then the second one is, I see myself with a magnificently healthy body in perfect order, where every cell is in the image of the perfect pattern and I am whole and complete. I see myself as vibrant, energetic, and filled with a new zest for life. I feel wonderful. I love that. Kind of Louise Hay, right? Just like really enforcing and stating the absolute positive. Now, God wanted us to read about the DNA here. So we're just going to go in. And we're going to read, and then we're going to connect the dots with the work that we're doing here this morning. And we're going to start here. Let's see. As above, so below, the holographic principle in nature. At a highly symbolic level, the holographic principle that every piece contains the whole can be seen in the cellular structure of all living bodies. Scientific discoveries in the world of cellular biology have demonstrated that every cell contains a copy of the master DNA blueprint, with enough information to make an entire human body from scratch. So, the fact that every cell within the human body contains the information to create an entire duplicate body mirrors the holographic principle, whereby every piece contains the information of the whole. So, we've heard this before, or maybe it's new, that idea that you can take one tiny dot of your DNA, one cell even of your body, and a whole body can be made from that one cell, right? That's how they clone everything. Dun, dun, dun. Now, let's see. I know there's a few. Okay. So each cell is endowed with a master library of how to build and maintain a human being. This library is contained within the DNA assembled genetic code in the nucleus of each cell. The cell reads the genetic code by using a process known as transcription. Oh my God, I love that. Transcribing, transcription. That's all we're doing here, right? It's just codes. We're transcribing, we're translating, we're transmitting. During transcription, information from DNA is transcribed or copied onto an intermediary RNA molecule, which is then used to carefully assemble the various functional and structural proteins of the cell. I think there's a little bit more. Let me see. God was saying to go a little bit further, and there's a little bit more. Where is it? Oh, okay, I see. So there's two longer paragraphs, okay? News from the world of particle physics. Matter as frozen light and its implications for medicine. There is an esoteric statement that says, as above, so below. One level of meaning to this phrase is that things on a microscopic level seem to parallel or mirror events on a macroscopic level. A further interpretation is that as we come to understand ourselves more fully below, we may come to better understand the universe around us above. Let us examine the world from the perspective of a single cell. The DNA within the nucleus encodes the structural, physical expression of the cell's activity. But the DNA is only an information manual containing instructions that still must be acted upon by some intermediate actors in the cellular scheme of things. Those actors in the cellular scenario are the enzymes, the protein-bodied workers that carry out the many everyday biochemical tasks. The enzymes catalyze specific reactions of chemicals, either to create structure through molecular assemblies or to provide the electrochemical fire to run the cellular engines and ultimately keep the entire effectively. Now, I love all this transcription and that the DNA is an information manual. I love that, and that it is the blueprint. Let me go back over here. Each cell is endowed with a master library of how to build and maintain a human being. A human being, not just a body. This library is contained within each DNA assembled genetic code of the nucleus of each cell. I mean, aren't we just incredible creatures? I love that the God phone, the God today was like, yeah, you're going to just read a little bit about the DNA. And that's how I feel like a lot of our healing passages happen. It's just from watching these kinds of shows like this. It's being present at a workshop or going to a sound bath or receiving healing or healing yourself or reading new books and information or blogs and, you know, just exposing ourselves to an expanded level of content in the areas that naturally draws us. And maybe we don't get it all right away. Yet also, maybe there are aspects and points within those couple paragraphs that I just read that are going to stick and that are helping to connect those dots of DNA further towards greater love and light. I love that. So just knowing, though, that each cell in your being has a whole manuscript that's like how to build a human being. Like there's a part in you that knows. And isn't it interesting that within that manuscript, right, there's everything in that DNA. If we're going to flip through, there's everything in there. And building, creating the correct conditions for your DNA to build the healthy, powerful, light body, higher self version of you. But there's also the addict, the self-hating, self-deprecating, self-loathing, whatever, depressed version of you that is unhealthy, that is ill in the mind, in the body, in the emotions, etc. So we can, the DNA is like, hey, I've got your manuscript right here. I can do everything. We can get real sick or we can get real healthy, right? Beyond just the body level. And so it's all encoded in here. And it's what we're doing accumulatively, as we were saying, that especially at this recent time of these eclipses, that's creating the correct conditions for that DNA to be like, oh, okay, we're allowing these other parts to go to sleep so that these other DNAs that have been asleep, what we call here the junk DNA, what scientists call the junk DNA are really your superpower DNA, your supernatural, superhuman DNA. Can you dig it? Are you with it? So you are heeding the call of your truth. If you're going through the dark night of the soul, if you feel like you've been dragged through the hot coals for the last week, or even just one night, or this whole past couple months during these eclipses, right, since July, it's because we are heeding the call of our boat. What did I write here at the bottom of this board? If it's getting, I can't even read my own writing. Oh, if it's getting uncomfortable, then we're growing. If it's getting uncomfortable, then we're growing, right? And it's been uncomfortable for me. Has it been uncomfortable for you? I know some of you have reached. For a lot of us, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But I know for me, it has been. But you know what? But I've been asking and intending and praying to bravely and courageously, integrally and authentically embody the greater vastness, this greater spectrum of the truth of me. And when you pray and you call that in, little by little, it's going to start to click, 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 where it's ready, where you're making those changes, right? Like last week, I was sharing very intimately with you how after a very devastating situation with my ex, I started drinking wine and like drinking too much wine. And there was a certain point where I realized like, this is not sustainable. This is like, I can't write the books. I can't do these things in the way that I want to do them, with joy, under grace, with ease, in clear divine communion with source, with God, with love, with light, if I'm drinking like this. And it took time, but something shifted. The planet shifted. Something shifted in me. I prayed for help. I gave the addiction to the Holy Spirit, you know, just praying and asking for help. And then finally something aligned where I was ready to start meeting myself as I was speaking myself. It's almost like my words were the training wheels, my prayers were the training wheels, like giving that addiction up. Not to say I'm not going to still enjoy my happy hour, but it's the pattern, the cycle of the emotional turmoil that I went through in the past that caused me to start drinking in the first place. And that's not the past anymore. The now is the now. I don't need to keep having that cycle on top of my now, because I'm perpetuating that emotional pain and all the stuff that came with why I started drinking wine in that way, for that reason, through being depressed and all that stuff. I'm bringing that into the now, and I don't need to. And when I was able to meet myself there, praying enough to give it away, to ask for guidance and light and all that good stuff, something happened. And the divine alignment happened where now my will is meeting my truth in the reflection of the Most High. Triangulation happens, and now I am carried. I am carried. It is not a struggle. It's not hard, but because I honored the call of the boat, as you are doing, when you honor that truth and you're with it, even though you might be like, I don't know why, I haven't got a clue, I really don't understand what's going on, but you know your higher self is guiding you. It's a mystery. Sometimes you know, and you can see the end, and you're like, okay, now I just get to like live through this to the end and follow my prompts as I go. And sometimes you're like, I have no idea. There is no ending in sight. I'm just right here, right now. I have no idea why this is happening or why this doesn't make sense logically, yet I trust because it feels in resonance, and I know it's coming from God, from source, my higher self, my light body, etc., my angels. And so I'm going to be present with it. And as we do that, then the grace comes. The release happens to the degree that you are ready and truly willing to release the past. Comes in and fills that space, like that saying. What is that saying? I don't know if it's Japan or China. It's one of those countries, those Eastern countries. But when there's this saying, right, that when like a ceramic bowl breaks, that they don't just throw it in the trash. They fill the cracks with gold, and they keep using it. And it's said that like that's how we are, right? Your cracks and the bumps that you. The lows that you go to come back up to the high are so important, equally as important, right, as all the pristine, perfect love and light moments. And it's those learning curves, it's those bumps, it's those places where we get filled. Unity, consciousness that bridges the gap between those sleeping dormant junk DNAs that are now waking up, because they are not junk. They are your superhuman power, your full being potential. But they are given the right conditions, the right of way, the right of passage to wake up and get to work and get calibrated. And so again, as those wake up, the other ones shut down and go to sleep, and might even just completely dissolve. We don't need them anymore. And that's where we get sleepy. That's where we get emotional or funky or grumpy or And it's a part of the passage, part of the process. We are heeding the call of our truth. The world as we know it is falling apart. And that is preparing our vibration. The world as we've known it is falling apart. And that is a part of preparing our vibration so that we can hold the frequency of the truth that we know we are. So that we can hold that frequency. We have to detox. You have to let go. Like really. Like totally. To know what it is to be on the other side of that addiction, you have to fully surrender. And I know that's what some of you are going through right now with patterns and addiction. You have to just so fully not know anything at all so that all the decks can be cleared. Everything can be clean and washed. So there's just nothing. So that you are allowed under grace to just rest in the zero. And it often is restlessness en route to that zero, especially where there's been addiction or things that we've done unconsciously, like not even thinking. You know, I smoke. I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes in the past. I grew up, I don't blame Ireland, but I grew up in Ireland from when I was 14 till 24 years old. And while that country and all of Europe has changed a lot over the years, I mean, smoking is like a pastime, just like how drinking alcohol is over there. Everything social is in a pub. And because the weather generally, especially in the past, now it's getting warmer, but in the past it was, you know, rain and cold and dreary out like 90% of the year. And so you're indoors, you're having a pint, you're having a smoke, you're having a fag, as they call them. And because back in the day you could smoke in pubs, it would be like, you'd go home, your hair would smell, your clothes would smell, you'd have to hang it out on the clothesline, all your jacket and stuff to air it out. Anyway, what's my point? Oh, is that for years, I just smoked tobacco, a lot of it. And then I started smoking with herbs in the tobacco. I was just telling Will that, excuse me, that American Spirits, they might still do it, but back in the day, they used to do a roll your own pouch with, it had like burberry and sage and like 2 other herbs in there that was already broken up in the tobacco. And so you could just roll your own kind of almost herbally cigarettes, but it still had, you know, American Spirit tobacco in there. And anyway, all my travels, it's shifted into a sagerette where then it's now what I smoke. And I do not smoke how I used to. I mean, I do that anymore. But still, I enjoy an evening sagerette most of the time. Organic tobacco, I crush up the white sage, I put a filter, I bless it. The point of this little story is that I have friends or family that are smokers. And they've said to me, generally in the way of like, wow, that seems like such a lot of work to do just to have a smoke. And it's not work to me. I mean, I've been doing it for years, and it's actually the only way that I will smoke. I cannot smoke a regular cigarette. I can't. It's the only way that I will smoke that tobacco. And they've said, like, I think I'm going to try it because it makes me be more aware of what I'm doing. It makes me be more conscious, where I'm not just unconsciously grabbing a smoke, having a fag, having a cigarette, whatever you call them, where it becomes a conscious intention. It's a conscious ceremony or a ritual. And so we are creating conscious ceremony, conscious ritual. We've been praying for it. This is preparing us. Everything we've been going through is preparing our vibration to meet ourselves. And now I don't even know why we went on the side and talked all about tobacco and sagerettes, but I thought it was going to connect here. And it's still good. I know it has to do with this preparation though, right? It's a part of the detox. It's a part of the like recalibration. And so some of you, all of us perhaps, are going from that dark into the light. We're going from being unconscious of smoking just, I don't know, 10, 20, 12 cigarettes. And that's just a metaphor. It can mean anything from how we're going to talk about stress, to how you cause stress in your life, a negative thing that you say over your body or your world every day. You know, all these ways that we just accidentally, are not even on purpose, unconsciously speak lack into our lives or perpetuate and live out patterns of imperfection, patterns of habit, of addiction, whether it's emotional or literally with a substance, with a coffee, with the sugar, with the, you know, whatever it is. We're moving into a greater consciousness where we're like, not like, oh, did I smoke 12 cigarettes today? No, you know, you are consciously either going to eat that sugary muffin or you're not, or you're going to find something vegan in between that has half the sugar, if that's your thing. You know what I mean? So there's this sense of, what's been happening. And as we move through this dark night of the soul, is this preparation. Because we've asked for this, it is initiation into greater light. And remember, as we release those old DNAs that no longer serve, the ones that are waking up, the ones that are calibrating and meeting you as your light body, as your higher self in the world, as you learn to bridge heaven on earth through the truth in your heart, as we do that, this detox, this dark night of the soul is a preparation. It's a part of the initiation, right? Into holding that higher frequency. And it's your ability to get through this, to let go of that old stuff that you think that you are, that you were in the past, right? That is bringing us and bridging us to the truth that is always here, that's always been here, but into the now, into who you are, who you know you're healing as the bigger version of you, the even more perfect, radiant, strong, courageous, passionate, clear, grounded, spirit-filled, aligned channel of love and light for yourself and for everything. There's this preparation. So there's not just this instant shift, right? Here in the 3D, this is how we do it. This is how it happens. There's a shift. And this dark night of the soul is a part of the preparation package, if you will. It's a part of the preparation to us coming into that greater love and light. And now sometimes there is that miracle where we just go from being, you know, rags to riches kind of a thing, you know, down in the dumps, totally tar body to like instant light body. I've seen it happen. It is more rare. Generally, this could change, but generally in my practice of sharing healing with individuals for, I don't know, since 2001, we're getting close to 20 years that I feel very blessed to be able to do this in the world. But through that experience, what I've seen is that no, there's an initiation to greater love. When you choose love, all the stuff that's fear-based to whatever rung of the ladder, whatever level you're in, that stuff gets shut down. And it's the shutting down of that stuff, like we're talking about in this dark night of the soul, the DNA detox, that we kind of get a little, our circuits get unwired. Those Rubik's Cubes, the kaleidoscope of DNA that you are, right? All those patterns, like we were talking about in last week's tarot, all those patterns, those shapes, those geometries are shifting. And so we shift with it. You're shifting with it. But as they shift, it feels gross sometimes. It feels icky, sticky, unky, gunky, clunky, funky, emotional, wistful, depressed, you know, all that stuff. Because the world as you know it is dissolving. Remember last week, dematerializing and rematerializing, that's what we're doing. We're popping in and out. We're popping in and out of who we've been and who we are. And we're bridging all the light. And it can be exhausting. If you've been very sleepy, let yourself rest. Let yourself sleep. If you can, man. Whew, I know this last week especially. Last night, thankfully, I got a good night's sleep. But for several nights in a row, like 4 nights in a row, I did not sleep well. And it's like, whoa, one night not sleeping well is one thing. But 4 nights in a row and having to get up early and work and in the heat out here in the desert and the AC in my car suddenly stopped working. So, you know, it's just all these little things. But still, you got to show up. It's the initiation. It's the initiation, the preparation. So as you crack and as you, as you like unfurl, as the circuitry comes undone and that sacred space in between is allowed, and then that new syncing up happens while those DNAs are coming apart and while some of them fall back asleep or dissolve just completely. Now that energy of what's dissolving, that's because we're wringing it out, we're working it out. Because we're like mourning, we're grieving those patterns that have served us up until this point. We bless them, we honor them. We're not dissing them. Because that's you. That's who you've been. That's where we've been at in our consciousness. And we're like, bye. Dark night of the soul, bye. Your soul's going like, bye, bitch. No. Bye, tar body. But it's like, that's that thing, right? Again, like the relationship ending, is someone dying? A part of you is dying, my dear. And so, yes, be gentle on yourself. There's like because you're not going back there. Now, you can recalibrate all that stuff. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're just talking about moving forward, right? If we think about things linearly, timeline-wise, we're moving forward. And yes, we are switching timelines, and that's a whole other thing. I don't know, we might be here for longer today. But this preparation, when those DNAs come apart, that's where our vase or our bowl that has been cracked, our being that has been cracked open. But we keep praying, we keep meditating, we keep focusing, we keep affirming the love, the light, the blessings, the gratitude, the gifts. And that fills those cracks with that golden light. Just like how we were talking about earlier, the story where they fill the cracks of the bowl or the vase in China or Japan with gold, real gold. And they keep using it and they see it as sometimes even more valuable because it's been cracked and filled with gold. And there's the story of the Native American, I don't even know what to call, it's like all this PC stuff. It's like Native American, Native Indian, African American, and some African Americans or black folks are like, I wasn't born in Africa, don't call me African. And it's like, okay, respect. What do we, you know, it's very interesting, right? If we just stand back, like this very interesting, I don't know if you're aware of it, whole other topic, but there's like this shape shifting, again, of this language of light, of how we are identifying ourselves. So coming back to the story though, the Native Americans that we might think of as the Indians, which I know is like the wrong PC word. I don't care about PCness, but I intend to be respectful and to speak with honor though of my brothers and sisters. But I think you know who I'm talking about. There's a sense that there's a story that in the weaving of their beautiful blankets and tapestries, that they would always leave a part of the tapestry, of the weaving, what is it even called? Of a weave, of a blanket, of whatever the work is or was, that they would on purpose do a stitch incorrectly that wouldn't match with the rest of the design. And it said that they did this on purpose as a means for sacred energy to enter the blanket, to enter the whatever it is that they were weaving or creating. So your cracks are filled with gold. And now it's the initiation of like vibrating as that gold. The cracks that have been created in you are creating more space for sacred energy, for that sacred energy to come in and to fill you, to lift you, to levitate you above the turbulence of the seeming gravity of this 3D plane. And that's what we're in. So we are being prepared. The yogis, the shamans, the mystics and the masters. That's the, you have to. Again, there are miracles. I don't know, and some people call, you know, them deities, ascended masters or such, where they've already done all this. And so they can just bloop, pop in and out and jump from one thing to another. But generally here as a human being, there is this sense of initiation, the sense of preparation. And that's what we've been going through. That's what the dark night of the soul is. It's this preparation. It's this time to cry those tears, to feel those feelings that you've been suppressing or you've been too stressed or too busy not to feel. It's the time to get in and keep doing this work and keep practicing self-love and just from dark to light. Be with that passage of letting go of your addictions. How does that feel? Be with your passage of not knowing where the end is, of just being now. And every shaman, every mystic, every master, every yogi goes through that. And it's to create the correct conditions in this vessel to hold more light, to be plugged in. We're going from that 110 to the 220, if you will. But something, I was going to say has to break. I don't know if I really like the way that sounds, though. Something's got to give. And it's you. It's you giving up the led to what you truly desire. The world as you know it falls apart to prepare your vibration, and that's when the illusion cracks. And it can last, oh, that's when the illusion cracks. Okay, we already talked about that with my wine and the depression stuff. Belief systems, habits, addictions, patterns, past life relationships, all this stuff is set to change when we go through this dark night of the soul, because you are changing on a DNA level. You are changing on purpose. And so we are being prepared. And so welcome, my brothers and my sisters, to this greater love, to this greater light. And if you watch this week's tarot, I'll come back and I'll put links. If you watch this week's tarot, or go watch it, if you watch them, or if you like it, if you're interested, because it's all about this, kind of teeter-tottering these messages back and forth. Okay. What remains after this? Excuse me. That's what I was going to say about the tarot. Is it is preparing us for what was I going to say? I keep remembering, and then it goes. And then I remember, and then it... In this week's tarot, what we're realizing is that we're coming to a completion of this phase. We're coming to like, all this rustle and tumbleweed where you're just being thrown around. No, dragged through the coals, if you will, although that's very dramatic. And I know I can be dramatic. But sometimes it just feels like that. But all the stuff that we've been going through, if you've been having a tough time, if you've been going through the dark night of the soul, our tarot reading this week is alluding to that we're coming close to the end of this. We're coming towards an end of completion where we're and before we get into our dipping back into last week's we're all Neos with the red pill and the blue pill, because I did want to talk to you about stress, because that is something that I cannot believe the level of stress that I was aware of within myself in these last couple of weeks. And so we're going to talk about that shortly with specific notions to trinary, binary, the red pill, the blue pill, 4D consciousness, and all that. So please stay tuned. What I did want to share with you before we switch, though, is what I've realized, right? Even amongst the tears and the funky gunky and all this not being able to sleep and feeling frazzled and sobbing and, you know, all this stuff that's been going on. Through it, though, what I've realized is on some levels, and I'm sharing this with you so that you might reflect on your situation. Are you having this experience too? Where, and this is maybe for my girls, maybe my dudes be doing this too, but I work with a derma roller and the fascia blaster. I only derma roll about once a week, fascia blast about once a week or so as well. But I love using these tools, and the derma roller is something that you use on the skin, generally for the face, the neck, but you could use it through the body to heal, to it's, what is it? It's a generates a better quality of collagen in the skin, etc. And the fascia blaster is a tool that you rub. If you don't know what this stuff is, what these tools are, that you work over the flesh of the muscles in the body to help release fascia, which is the matrix within your physical body that moves through all muscles, all organs. It's like, you know, when you see a piece of chicken and you pull it apart and there's like that white threaded webbing stuff, that's the fascia, and it moves, it connects through all of your skin, through all the layers of your muscle and your organs and every part of you. And so anyway, this tool helps to break that stuff up. So I use that anyway. So for my girls and for my guys too, if you're like, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about, those tools, those kinds of things. I tell you, this last week though, using the derma roller, which is a little, it looks like a little tiny steamroller with a handle, and it has anything from 200 to 500 tiny little needles. And I know it sounds like, what? Crazy if you're not into this kind of thing, but you roll it over your skin. And I'm 46 years old, and I love this tool because it helps to rejuvenate and bring blood flow and circulation. You know, no matter what age you are, though, it's something, or whether you're male or female. The point is, though, is that it feels kind of funky because you got needles on this little thing, and you roll it over your skin, and then you put your, I feel like now we're totally changing gears, but the point of this is that I was able to go deeper, and it didn't hurt. You know, because those needles, you're like, ooh, 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 ooh. When you first start, I've been doing it for, I don't know, 6 months now, but when you first start, it's like, because you're like not used to being pinpricked with all these needles, puncturing your skin. But this week I did a session, and I was like, I could go deeper with greater ease, and I could feel like just those needles going in deeper, and it didn't hurt, and it didn't feel funky, and I was like, oh my God. And then I fascia blasted, and I was like, the fascia blaster was in deeper in my body, like in my flesh and my muscles as I worked it. And then I go outside. I'm looking at my notes here because I wrote these down specifically. I wanted to tell you. So then I go outside, and this I talk about in the tarot this week, where I think it was not yesterday, but the day before. You know, as I said, I haven't been sleeping. All this dark night of the soul stuff. Really busy, up early morning, getting to it, and I've been really good about keeping my meditation practice. Yet, 2 mornings ago, I had to get up early, had to get in the car, had to run, had to do this and that, and I didn't have time, right, to meditate. And my day was back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And I could feel stress, and I could feel the heat in my car as my AC suddenly decides not to work, and it's 113 outside here in the desert. I could feel this like stress. But still, I was back to back to back to back to back all day. I come home. Anyway, so at the end of the day, I'm like, I make my little sagerette. I have my kombucha, and I go outside onto the patio, and I'm like, having my sagerette. And I'm a couple puffs in, and I tell this story on the tarot, and my higher self taps me on the shoulder, is like, so now is actually a really good time for you to meditate. And I'm like, it's like 10:30 at night. My mind is like trying to logically be like, you're almost time for bed. Why should you meditate now? You know, but my higher self is like, no. You know, the stress has been building up inside of you all day. And now if you have 5 minutes to come outside to take a break from your life or the world as you think you know it, to breathe this tobacco in, to relax, to take time out for yourself, then you certainly have some time to meditate. And I was like, I can't argue with that. I'm a practicing master. I'm going to honor that, of course. I'm not going to ignore my higher self. I'm not going to ignore me, are you? Remember we had that a couple tarot readings ago. Anyway, so I put down the sagerette, I put down the kombucha. This higher self is like, uncross your legs, palms up, close your eyes, take a few breaths. And I really did it. You know, because sometimes we can get those messages and you kind of like meet it and you're like, okay. And you're not really invested. You're just like, let's just get the few breaths over because I'm busy and I got to get back online, or I'm busy, I got to make that phone call or whatever. But I really stayed with it. I stopped the world and I brought it inside. And do you know what? I swear to God, the air was so sweet. As I breathed in and out through my nose, I could smell negative ions. I could smell the negative ionosphere. And if you're unaware, generally speaking, we want to move into greater negative ionosphere. And we need both, right, for this world. But the positive ions are those that cause illness, cause cancer, cause disturbance to our energy field, to our bodies, our minds. And the negative ions, such as the oceans, or the waves crashing on the beach, and there's like that smell, that certain something in the air, those are negative ions that actually help the body, mind, emotions, the energy vehicle that you are, calibrate itself into a greater love and light condition of peace, of relaxation. And I'm sitting there and I'm meditating, and I swear to God, I'm like going, and I know what negative ions smell like. It's the ozone. It's the ozone, which is negative ions, which is actually good. I'd have heard. Anyway, side note, you can look up that stuff. But I know what the negative ions smell like because I have a device that I work with that emits negative ions. So I'm sitting outside and I'm going like, and I'm meditating and I'm breathing these negative ions in, and I'm like, so anyway, I come back out. It was only for about 3 minutes or so. And I was like, thank you. Higher self is like, go ahead, have your sagerette, have your kombucha, get back to your little break time here. But that's just it though. The point of this telling you about the derma roller, the fascia blaster, the breathing in the negative ions is like, what's happening as we're being prepared through this dark night of the soul, through this detox of this DNA, through all of these shifts happening, is that as we come into these greater versions of ourselves under grace and in the name of love and light, we're going deeper. In the physical, again, I was able to go deeper in that derma roller with the fascia blaster. And remember I was saying in the tarot that I was like, I've been so busy and it's been so hot. I like to hike and go out into nature, and it's just been too hot and my schedule has been crazy and all this stuff. So I've been exercising, and I love going to the gym, but at home I love doing my little routine too. And I was doing a core thing, and suddenly I was able to go deeper. I don't know if you know Kalinetics. And I know I'm kind of going off to the side here, but it's all connects. It's this preparation. It's this where we're going deeper. And I'm sharing this with you so that you might reflect on parallel your life. But I'm doing these crunches, these sit-ups, these Kalinetic sit-ups. And all of a sudden my body goes deeper, and I start to feel the musculature in my body work. You know when you feel certain muscles work and you're like, woo, that shoulder muscle or that tummy or the butt or the whatever it is you feel. And then there's layers of what you feel, right? This was a layer of my core that I have never, ever in my whole life felt before. And I'll tell you a secret. It was orgasmic. And I know we're going to do a 4DT. We're going to do one. Like, should I meditate before I masturbate? We're going to talk about masturbation in time. The divine will tell us when it's time. And it was orgasmic. It was like, I'm laying there and I'm doing this crunching and I'm going like, like I couldn't believe, like it was so good. And I got it right between my third chakra and my heart, like right along that trust bridge where like this, and like I could feel my muscles across that upper band of core working, but also this energy set point along my crystalline tube, my spinal column, like got activated, and it connected with the root chakra and the second chakra. And I was feeling that kundalini, that orgasmic, like ecstasy. And so I finished my crunches and I was like, I'm going to do another set. And I did. But this was like the same day as the derma roller, the fascia blaster, the core. And then I go outside later that night and it's the ionosphere, the negative ions. So my offering to you is that to be aware as you are doing things, again, not just unconsciously doing the dishes, not just unconsciously going to the gym or working out, not just unconsciously smoking your whatever, breathing, but like paying attention to when something feels a little different, you know, so when your sphere has expanded to include more of you. And so we're going deeper with ease. That's what I intend this point to be in sharing that little vignette of information, is that our ability to go much deeper, much easier, right, is a gift of this dark night of the soul. So it's not, we don't have to go through a dark night to go as deep, if you will, because we have been preparing the vessel through going through this initiation consciously, as a master, as a shaman, as a mystic, as a yogi, as whatever, as just a normal person that you are watching this live stream. So we're going deeper with greater ease. Whereas before it'd be like, man, that layer of tar, you know, whether it's even on your skin and your muscles, you know, when your muscles are tight, tension, stress, it's hard. It doesn't feel good to stretch when you're really, really tight. It hurts because there's like, you're like breaking those patterns, that fascia, that stuff apart. But you do know that as you surrender into your yoga, into your stretching, into your breath, oh my gosh, it feels so good. Your body's like, I could stay in this stretch like forever, right? It starts to feel really good. Well, that's the true you. So we're able to feel, to sense, to go, to be present with these deeper parts of ourselves with greater ease. It doesn't feel devastating, hard. We don't have to work as hard to go as deep. We don't have to push as hard, use as much energy. It is with greater grace and with ease that we are accessing these deeper aspects of ourselves. So I wanted to share that with you. So again, thank you for being here. We started at 11 and it's 12:30 and we have some more to go. So thank you for being here. If you are just hopping on and coming through, I would be so grateful if you dropped a hello in the comment box. And again, my name is Tuesday. Everyone watching, even if you come, I know live stream, it's hard, right? Sometimes you're like, well, I can't make that exact time. And I know you don't know, I don't know if I'm going to be here for 30 minutes, an hour, 3 hours or more. It's very organic. So I appreciate any time and all the time that you have to spend with me here. This is what I love doing. I mean, it's just in my nature to do and to share this. And it is my intention that this audience, that our community grows and grows and grows, and that I have the honor to speak to more and more and more people and to share these ideas, share these passages of wisdom and knowledge and all of these teachings with a larger and larger community, with a larger and larger continuum of the collective. Not to change the world, but just because I know how fucking good it feels. Sorry. Not sorry. I'm not sorry. But just because, you know what? It's just my nature. I'm a teacher. I hold space for others. I present information and ideas, and I share with you what I've learned. And you know, one thing I know for sure, because we know, right, along this passage, you learn that, like, you know, the real wise ones say, I know nothing. I know nothing, you know, and that's like where the real wisdom is, right? And I don't know anything. Then the rebel inside of me says, oh yeah, you do. If you know anything, you know one thing for sure. And I go, yeah, you're right, higher self. You're right, inner rebel. I know that love, for me, is the truth. If I'm going to know anything at all, it's that love is the truth. And I know that love being the truth has healed my life. And I know that the healing of my life has allowed for a rebirth of a certain order to come about, whereby I have moved from being a victim. I've moved from being depressed and in pain and in sorrow and walking with my past and my trauma and the hurt of my past every single day. I have learned love through self-healing, how to alchemate, how to change that pain into power. And my guidance is to just share that with you. Okay, so we're going to look at some of these notes. DNA detox we talked about. It's about getting unstuck from the pattern. Now, okay. Okay, so I see there's something here. I definitely want to share, but I think this is once I speak to you from the board here. So I'm going to speak from the board. I have our show notes and this board up here. Where do we even start? So there's this idea, and I know I share it when I teach Reiki of, and I'm going to say it a little differently right now, but it's dropping the karma and living your dharma. And I'm also, just as a side note, I want you to know that I'm aware that we have not done a guided meditation at the end of a 4DT for quite a while now, and that those were a staple, a part of the end of our programming. And I'm just aware of it. And there have been happened today because I allow spirit, I allow the higher self of our collective to guide these shows. And so I do what spirit tells me to do with regard to that. And I just haven't had the call. So, but I just want you to know that I'm aware that it's been a minute since we've gone in on that level. And I do kind of miss those shamanic meditations are very powerful. And a part of me feels that when I have the time that I might go in and edit and just pull some of those meditations, like make a new video of just those meditations from the end of some of our 4DTs and put them on the meditation playlist. Drop the karma and live your dharma. So as these DNAs go to sleep, the junk DNAs wake up, truth wakes up, and the untruth goes to sleep. We're dropping our karma, and we're learning to live our dharma. Living your dharma is the compassionate wisdom, the truth within you, as we talked about much, much earlier. And when we release those patterns, those cycles that bind us to the past, that bind us to our pain, that bind us to patterns of addiction, of habit, of blame, of shame, of trauma, of whatever all this stuff is. As we drop that, as we have been doing with these eclipses and the work we've been doing in this dark night of the soul that we're going through, individually and collectively, when those karmas are released, then we are freed into the greater pattern of self, the truth of us. Place. Rather than every day having to be a battle between dark and light, between who you used to be and who you are now. Pain of the past and what's going on now. And sometimes it's a physical ailment. Sometimes it's something like high blood pressure or something that builds over time that will finally be like, ding, 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 pay attention. It's time to change your diet. It's time to change how you go to sleep at night. It's time to get out of that relationship. It's time to forgive or whatever it is, or all of it. So we're learning to drop the karma and live the dharma. And that's the heaven on earth, right? Once that tipping point shifts enough where we have released enough of that karma of living those patterns, those unconscious cycles over and over and over again, then it's like, then we can just be all that energy that was taken up, all that space, granted, we bless it, right? All those lessons, all those initiations, those healings of the past bring us into who we are and our experience in the now. But in living your dharma then, free of karma, that's where the fully calibrated light body, higher self version of you gets to be in the world and not of it, gets to bridge heaven on earth and live from that place of love. And we practice that. And we get better and better at living love and only love as we go. Now, last week's 4DT, and I'll put a link up above, was called We Are All Neos. And we talked a lot about this red pill, blue pill, right? And what the difference is. Well, what I want to talk about, actually, I don't think we talked about what the difference was too much. But what I want to talk about is getting into what's the difference between the red pill and the blue pill. And what changes. And I'm looking here at my notes. You see, because I feel it's really important that we understand these levels and these layers, understand these layers of life, these layers of consciousness, these layers of the playing ground of this dimensionality of the matrix. And if we just really simplify it to this notion that we're familiar with from the movie, the red pill, the blue pill, what's the difference? Okay, so we remember that the blue pill right? Morpheus says to Neo, you take the blue pill, nothing changes, right? You stay in the TikTok, go back to your life the way it was, bada bing, bada bang. You take the red pill, you go down the rabbit hole, and you see where the TikTok, you see the invisible realm of what's really going on with these forces of light and dark in the dual system of the grid, of the matrix. You get to have a look at that. So on one hand, you're blissfully ignorant, so to speak, with the blue pill, working the 9 to 5, getting your paycheck, buying a house, having the kids, you know, whatever the norm, the status quo is, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is a great planet to do that. Lots of people do that, and they're very, very happy, and that's great, and there's no judgment at all. And it's said, right, in that metaphor, that that's the blue pill consciousness. The red pill consciousness is like, whoa, where you begin to see, where you're like, why is the government putting fluoride in the water? Why are they spending X amount of billions of dollars in the budget in this country to put fluoride in the water? And you're like, and why is there fluoride in my toothpaste? And then you start researching and you're like, oh, fluoride can cause Alzheimer's? Or, you know, you start putting these pieces together. Then you're like, why do we even have genetically modified food? You're like, why is there even GMOs? Like, why can't everything be organic? Like, why is organic more expensive than non-organic? And is it really healthier for me? And, you know, you start busting out of the matrix. You start thinking in bigger ways, you know, and it can really be a rabbit hole, because then there's Illuminati, there's conspiracy theories, you know, and all this stuff. And often in the realm of spirituality are connections and ties to multidimensional teachings or avenues, like the Mandela effect, right? Like just these different ways of experiencing the multidimensionality of our being, and how those multidimensions crisscross, affect, speak to, and influence one another, and influence us, and how we have an influence on it. So the threading, it starts, the pages start to peel through, and we start to see through the TikTok of like, why should I go to school? Go to, you know, get a loan for however, I don't know, because I didn't do it. I'm just telling a story, you know, but it's like the stories that we're told about how the world works and how we need to fit in order for the world to work for us, which is, you know, go to school or get the college loan, go to college, and then forever you're paying back this ridiculous exorbitant fee, or you get the mortgage on the house and you're still paying it even after you die. You know, it's these things, or it's like working, you know, hard over the best years of your life. And then when you're done at 65, 70, and I live in Palm Springs here in the desert, where there's a lot of seniors that live out here. It's a very gay friendly environment, but also it's a very senior friendly environment. And I know people that are in their 80s. And so what's the point? The point is that sure, you can work until you're old and then you retire, but by that point, do you have health issues from sitting at a desk for 50 years? Is your back hurt, or your hips worn out, or you know, whatever. And now you stop working, and now you just live until you die, and you retire and do nothing, or you move to Hawaii or whatever. But there's these concepts, right? And so anyway, as you take the red pill, you start to see through, and you start asking questions. The blue pill is where you're just like, ignorance is bliss, and I don't want to know what's in my food. I don't care. It tastes good. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And that's fine too, because everything is an illusion anyway, right? Yeah, when we start getting woke, as it were, right? When we start adding light and becoming more aware, we realize that these things are happening. And so a part of the red pill is like going in and seeing this duality construct in this collective consciousness that is fully breeding a love or fear mentality. And we see it in the media, we see it on the news, and you feel it in yourself when you harbor more fear. If you really believed all of the fear-based notions that are on your phone, on your TV, and through all of these constructs, if you really believed that stuff, I mean, your blood pressure would go up. You would be living in fear that at any moment we're going to enter into World War III, that the whole planet's going to get nuked or whatever, you know. It's stressful. And so what often happens, I know for me, when you take the red pill, and you start to like me, I don't know what it is for you, but back in the day, I used to, you know, work for Greenpeace on the streets in Ireland, and then years later in New York. I had petitions for people to sign against GMO food, and you know, there's all these things where I was like, I saw the Matrix, and I was like, we're gonna stop this, we're gonna fight this. Let's get angry at the man. It's the government, it's the man, it's the Illuminati, or it's the conspiracy, it's the blah 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 blah. And so there was like this back and forth of like, I'm not in the Matrix anymore. I took the red pill. I can see you. And just like Neo, now he's like not just a computer programmer. Now he sees the Matrix. He's in the Matrix. And now, yes, he learns and is initiated into his superpowers, right? His kung fu power. But then he's got to use it and battle all these tar bodies. The dark side. The fear. So essentially, he's still in the Matrix. So let us not be fooled. Let us not think that just by simply taking the red pill, we are going to be exiting the Matrix. The red pill brings us into the awareness that there even is a Matrix, that there is a collective consciousness, that there are variables of frequency, love versus fear, light versus dark, that there are these polarity and dualistic realities in existence, these variables that are in resonance. And we begin to see it. And do anything spiritual, then we'll really start to go like, oh. And then we want to change it. And then we're like, man, who are the people keeping all those chickens in cages? You know, for the chicken McNuggets, where those birds are pecking each other's eyes out. And I mean, I can go on. But you know, you start scratching your head and you're like, why is the whole world living this way when there's enough food to go around, when there's enough money to go around? And so you start to want to change it. And that's where we get caught in the loop of the red pill. And we think we're exiting the Matrix, but we're really not exiting the Matrix, you see. We're just hamster on the wheel. Now we're even more invested because now we think we're woke. Because we see the man, because we see and we know the Rothschilds or the Bilderbergs or whatever all those stories are, right? Those stories. Different dimensions of quantum realities to possibly exist in. Whatever you choose is what you're going to get. But knowing that the red pill is not the final pill. And in fact, let's go here. So let me look at my board. Remember last week I did a little presentation on this. And I love Santos Bonacci. He is Mr. Astrotheology here on YouTube. I love him. Santos, if you ever want to chat, my email's down in the description box. No, I'd love to like interview up with him. I don't think I'm ready yet. He's like way up here. Like I need to I'm still calibrating some of my teachings to be at the voltage level. Maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, hi Santos. I love and appreciate everything you share. And please, if you dig where we go with some of our labyrinths, I invite you to go to his Mr. Astrotheology on YouTube channel. He's got all sorts of stuff. He's a flat earther. Whatever. I don't watch those videos. I don't care about that. I mean, it's interesting, but it doesn't call me. And honestly, the feeling realization is that like there's every shape of this planet It's sure, it's round, it's a sphere, it's flat, it's a triangle, it's an octagon. It's like, it's everything. And each way that we decide to see it, whether it's flat or round, is simply a portal to just different variables of consciousness being awakened and open. So I think it's interesting that there's this, not a separation, but this like, where there was a collective thinking and believing in one way, and now it's shape-shifted into allowing more possibilities to be there. I appreciate that, because that is our trinary nature. So let's keep going. Okay, to exit the matrix is only an idea, yet it keeps you in the loop. We talked about that. Blue pill being ignorance is bliss. The red pill, you realize you are living in a matrix. And then I'm going to show you what we're working with. This is our show note board for today. And that's what I love doing. I love having time before the show, you know, as we come to days coming up to it, to meditate and to get my downloads and to make notes so that we can sit here and shoot the shit. And so that I have some really nice baselines and ideas to navigate with you. So if you take the red pill, then what, right? You end up fighting the matrix, which keeps you bound to the matrix. And we just talked about that. We covered that, right? Or, as Santos was saying in that part of that interview that I played in our presentation last week, talking about this, or Santos is like, but you know what? Morpheus is, or Neo is never offered the idea of taking no pill. And of course, what movie would it be without that? And it's a brilliant movie, right? And Santos was also the very first person I ever heard talk about The Matrix as being a documentary, right? The first time I heard that, I was like, oh my God, mind blown. I love this guy. And other people are like, oh, well, that's just a documentary. But I'm like, oh, I think Santos really like kind of channeled that concept first, which I love. It's a documentary. So he's saying, what if we are given the option of no pill? I'm going to read what I wrote down here. Neo, and he also says, and we talked about this, but I didn't go into depth, and I want to go a little bit deeper with you, is that he talks about how Neo is already the one, because his name is an acronym. If you move the letters around, you see that Neo can break down into one. Neo is already the one. But just like you and I, we are also already one. And the point that I didn't get to last week that I want to make sure we cap on top of all this is that because Neo is one, not just the one, but he is one, as you and I always are, intricately, constantly, always, no matter what it looks like on the outside, the root of, because of that, we don't need to take a red pill or a blue pill. We learn to be present in the oneness of self, that is in oneness with the oneness of all that is in existence. So I just thought that was very, very powerful, and I wanted to make sure that we got that. Neo is already the one, yet he is also one and has always been. That's the secret within us all. Okay, so just understanding these levels of, you know, both the red pill and the blue pill are still binary. We talk about the binary system of consciousness that is the norm of the collective, of the matrix, that is the dualistic of the right and the wrong, of the good and the bad, of like the good guys always fighting the bad guys always trying to get one over on the good guys, and like this, you know, the drama, the novella of the fight within our heads, within our bodies, within the world, the violence, the wars, just all that stuff, the perpetuation of that. That's totally binary. That's the ones and the zeros. That's like you only have a 1 and a 0 choice. Yes or no, on or off. And we've been trained, conditioned to think that that's all there is. And so on one level, yeah, the red pill will snap you right out of that. And it'll be like, no, there's more. Whoa, I see there's more. And I have more superpowers now. But if I don't do something different with these superpowers, I'm going to think that I have these superpowers just so I can stay in the matrix and keep fighting. Now that I see the dark, I'm going to fight the dark. And you can do that, right? Save the whales. I love the whales. You know I do. And all the ways that we can, and believe me, I think it's very important that we generate those guided, right? Where it's truly aligned, that you generate, and like how I do here, you find your platform and you share the information that you're guided to share, to bring the good news or to bring the news to others. And some, you know, talk about animal rights, and some talk about quantum timelines, and some talk about diet and nutrition. It's just different. But I'm speaking about this trinary binary because we're aware that there's this binary system and that it's a status quo. It's the basic conditioned aspect of all of us. It's the blue pill and the red pill. It's the duality, the polarized versions of you and I and of the world, where there's this constant, all things are good or it's not good. It's good or it's bad. Right? It's okay or it's blowing up. It's like this juxtaposition that is constant here. Now this brings us into what I was talking about earlier. This is our final sharing for this afternoon. And it has to do with stress. So I'm curious if you, over these last months or week or two, have felt stress in a different way, in a new way than you are accustomed to. I know for me, I generally am pretty calm and cool and collected. That's just a part of my Taurian nature. I'm a Taurus. Taurus sun, Taurus moon, Cancer rising. So I'm generally grounded, generally together, generally able to just like, right, center and take care of myself. I've practiced, I've learned over many years, you know, how to do that. And so stress is like not a thing that I have to like work on generally. Yet over these past couple weeks, oh my gosh, with not sleeping, with overworking, with the heat out here in the desert and with the AC going off in the car and just all these dynamics, I was feeling stressed, but I didn't realize it at first. But I'm sitting at the computer and I'm writing, working on my books, and I'm feeling this thing, this unsteadiness, this tension inside of me that's trying to grip. And I had this awareness that it was definitely a part of this DNA detox. It's a part of the cellular memory detoxing. It's a part of the Mercury retrograde. And it's a part of this recircuiting that we're doing, right? This recalibrating that we're doing. But I also realized that it was deeply rooted in this idea. So, as a lot of you know, often when the God phone calls, God will say, hey, let's read a passage from A Course in Miracles. And so we do. I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and that teaching, those teachings, the gifts of that book has really helped me to change my life in miraculous ways. And I was at one of our group meetings the other week with Will, and it brought me back into this place of remembering, right? That there's this idea in those teachings that speaks to this idea of your perception and this idea of your knowledge, of your knowing, and where perception is where we are seeing love and fear. Knowing is the perception, if you will. It's beyond perception, but it's that shift in consciousness that goes beyond the duality of love or fear and into that place of love and only love. Like we were talking at the very beginning of this show, that God realization is that feeling of love and only love, where there's no opposite to God. There's no opposite to love. And it's our ability to shapeshift through our own healing, through our own choosing of love and light, to move from the duality way that we see the world. And I teach that that's what those physical eyes do, is that they see the world, right? There are sense organs. They see the love and the light, the darkness, the pain, the fear, the juxtaposition of the polarized aspects of this dual plane that we live in the matrix, in the grid. I call it the grid. I teach it as the grid of collective consciousness that we're all connected to. And so there's this sense of when we are perceiving, because it's of the binary nature, because it's rooted, these physical eyes, and because we've been trained and they're wired to see love or fear, we know that a part of our healing path and a part of our route to mastery is learning to see love. And that's what A Course in Miracles is. It's a mind training where you start to recognize that anything that you see, that you sense, that you feel in the world that has any kind of darkness, of any violence, of any tragedy like that, that's a part of the illusion, that it's actually not real. Love is real. And that's what you're doing when you study A Course in Miracles, is your mind training. You're training your mind to see love and only love. When you have a choice to judge yourself, to judge others, you don't choose judgment, you choose love, or you just don't judge. You train your mind to see through the illusion, to see through fear-based realities that we are quite confronted with as a constant here in the world, especially the more media that you watch, your consciousness, right? And this is just how it is. Yet when we make that switch from perceiving love or fear to knowledge, as A Course in Miracles says, to knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, without a shadow, get it, of a doubt, that love is the truth, that God is love, and that everything else that isn't of that frequency is actually not true at all. And you start to trust that, and you start to work with that metaphysically and explore really embodying that. Your whole world starts to change. And so this is leading us into this aspect of stress. When we are uncovering these aspects of stress in our lives, we're realizing that stress is born of a part of us that is anticipating the bad. If you were only expecting the best, if you were only expecting and knowing that the best is what is now and what will be, then there's no need to stress. There's no need to worry. There's no need to project the fear of your experiences in the past into the future and resonate as them in the now. Anticipation. What I'm going to share with you right now is just a framework to consider and to see how this may aspect into your life. Ooh, I'm seeing a beautiful violet aura around this painting on the other side of the room on the wall. It's beautiful. Anticipation is that which roots us with stress. Anticipation can be a good thing though too, right? Because it's like, if you're really hungry and you go to your favorite place to get your favorite food and you're like, you walk in the restaurant and you can smell it and you place your order and you're like, your mouth is watering, you're like, I'm anticipating that veggie burger or that salad or that whatever, and you're like, and it's anticipating, right? You have a concert or a show you're either going to perform in or go and be a participant and go see the concert, Beyonce or a play at the park or something, and you're anticipating and you're like excited, right? That's a cool thing, anticipating. There's the anticipation of sex, sexiness. You're flirting with someone, you're kind of anticipating, are we going to kiss? Should I kiss them goodnight? Oh, you know, it's kind of that like excitement, sexy, very sensual, very sensory, all these aspects, right? Because it's very physical, this anticipation of what's going to happen in the 3D. Yet, the realm that I'm sharing with you is this anticipation, again, that accumulates over the long term or the short long term, whether it's a couple days a week or several years of your life, where the bad has happened, you have PTSD on some level, and now, even though that happened many years or whatever ago, in the now, you are still walking in the world in every moment and every day with the PTSD, with the trauma, with the marking on you that is resonating as the frequency and the vibration of that past version of you that has been hurt, that has been violated, that has been gone through pain. And when we have not done the healing work on those areas where that pain has occurred, it festers, it just sits in there, in our body, in our minds, in our emotions. It finds a place in there, right? And it starts to be very real to us. And again, there's a period of mourning, of grieving, of healing. There's cycles. Yet, when those cycles have happened and we haven't really dealt with healing, and it's okay because we're all at different places, but we start to bump up into it. We carry the anticipation of that stress in our bodies, in our minds, in our emotions as a day-to-day vehicle. And so what happened to you 5 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 20 years ago that shocked you, that traumatized you, that created great stress in your body-mind continuum, as that memory, that cellular memory is not worked out and brought to naught, brought to zero through love, through forgiveness, right? Through grace, under grace always. If that is not allowed to happen, then that stress, that trauma, that memory resides within us. And so there is an inner anticipation, because as long as that memory walks with us, we are thinking that that thing can happen again. We can be betrayed, we can be shot, we can be mugged, we can be raped, we can be hurt, put through pain again, whatever level it is. And until that memory is cleared to the degree, right, over layers or instantly or however, but until it's actually looked at and felt and healed, we walk with that. And this creates this anticipation, because it is not resolved. It resides as an anticipation of that thing happening again, because the memory is in us and it is running. And even though it might be in the subconscious, the conscious levels of our being, it is running our lives, and it creates underlying gradations of stress. Even I know individuals who are in relationship. I know someone who's in a relationship, their partner two-timed on them a year ago. They decided to resolve it, to forgive it. A year later now, though, the person who was two-timed on in this relationship has a lot of physical ailments going on. So we ask, was that forgiveness complete? Was it in true harmonic alignment with the truth in her? Or was her higher self saying, this is your chance to get the fuck out of this relationship. This individual is not meeting you at your higher self. You deserve more. You are allowed to love yourself more and to be respected in a relationship. So you can actually use this, unfortunate, hurtful, painful incident, but to your advantage to get out. That's my 2 cents, is that perhaps this individual's higher self was saying, this is a good time to make a big change in this relationship. But because they didn't honor that, they decide to stay. This is causing stress because on an unconscious, subconscious level, they're telling their body that it's okay. They're telling their spirit, they're telling their mind, their emotions that it's okay for this to happen, that I'm actually going to stay in harm's way, that I'm going to actually stay. And I know I can't, and I'm just, this is just one story. I can't blanket this whole, this story over everyone. We're all different. And some people have those incidences in their relationships and they truly are able to heal, forgive, and have an amazing relationship in life after that. This is just a story to paint this idea for you, though, of how stress happens in that way, where you make agreements in your life that are not congruent with the truth of. And what happens is this creates this underground, this hidden level of stress. And forget it, if you already work 14 hours a day and you don't have enough time to give back to yourself, you have to really try hard, to find space to meditate or to get grounded and all that, and you're living a lie in your intimate relationship, that's stressful. There's an anticipation of this partner two-timing on you again, of this thing happening, especially if it's not fully resolved, healed, cleared. And especially if you're not honoring your truth. From the incidences that I had as a youth in my life, I'm still working out the physical consequences of walking with that stress in my body for 40 years. All the ways that I was betrayed, that I was hurt, that I was manipulated, that I was abused as a child, made me, like, a fishing line and how you can go looser or you reel it in and you go tighter. When I meditated on it, that's what I got, is like, oh, because for me, it's the psoas. If you're familiar with your musculature or in your body, for me, it's the psoas that for years has been a thing. And really, when the chiropractor looks at my legs, it's like one leg is longer than the other because one side of me is all tight. Although I've worked on it, and it's really a process of going, again, to that deeper level of it. So it's unfurling, it's beginning to relax because it knows that that's not true anymore. Whatever, whoever, all that stuff I went through in the past, I was unable to resolve and heal those issues for so many years. So I suppressed it, I kept it in, and I reeled in my energy. And I created stress through the anticipation that I was going to be hurt again, that I was going to be abused again, that I was going to be manipulated or lied to or bullied or whatever all that stuff is, got festered in there. And it collected for me in my psoas, where it's like I like a cat backing up and like reeling in their energy. There was so much anticipation, like I was so anticipating being fucked with. I was a victim, as you know, if you read my book, The Reiki Apprentice, I mean, my whole life up until not too long ago, I was a victim. And so as a victim, you're constantly thinking like the world is out to get you. People are going to fuck you up. Talk about the Matrix, right? But with that, my little fishing wire was so wound up and I was unconscious. I've been doing yoga. I'm a Reiki master. I meditate, the healing and and all this stuff. Great. Yes, more of that. Thank you. Yet, I'm still working out the physical, my stuff too. And that's what it showed me. So there was this anticipation. So coming back to anticipation and expectation for what I'm sharing with you here, I was unconsciously, subconsciously happened to me in my relationships, in my job, in my money, in my everything, in my sex, in my everything. I had programmed myself and I was anticipating that. I was anticipating being hurt, being bullied, being in fear in this world. And that just became such the normal scope of reality for me. My body got used to being that cat who was spring-loaded, ready to jump. Everything is wound up tight, 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 and all that fear and all that stuff is stuck in there, but I never jumped. And so where have you been building up stress and fear from something in the past of your life or now or recently where you haven't jumped, but it's just been like tighter? Whether it's your hip, your knee, your shoulder, your neck, your something. Where is it showing up in the physical for you? And so, but what I realized over these years of working out all this tar, all these things, is it's just because I was anticipating the worst. And as I've learned to expect the best, as I've learned to choose love and only love, it's a very different experience here. Because I have the expectation that only the highest good is going to come to pass no matter what it is. Whether it's a book that I'm publishing, whether it's my dear family member's health, who's going through chemotherapy right now, someone very, very dear in my life that I love very much. Love and only love. I'm not going to sit in stress and anticipate the worst, which is kind of like what we're taught to do. It's kind of like the go-to of how our mind will go unless we reel in those horses and we teach ourselves to perceive love over fear, and even beyond that, to go to the place of knowing where love and only love exists. I posted something on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, follow me there. Or even just check it out. If you go to my website, there's a link where you can just check out my page, my posts. If you're interested, and if you're watching this now, give me a thumbs up. If you're resonating with this, I appreciate it. I don't get too many thumbs up, although I won't affirm that, but I think just our community aren't that kind of people that are all thumbsy. Although I know some of you are full-on supporters, April and Will, and there's a handful of you that are like, every time you're on, you do the comment, you do the thumbs up, you're appreciate it. It's just in the algorithms of YouTube, it helps my videos be seen by a wider audience. You know, if you get more thumbs up and more subscribers and stuff, it puts you into like a different pool of possibility. So I thank you for all of that. But this idea of anticipation keeping us bound in the binary system of the matrix, expectation moving us into the trinary. And I made this funny note here because what I realized is like the expectation is like it's already done. My uncle, his healing is already done. The bills that I have to pay, they're already paid. All the plans that my higher self is saying, you're going to travel to all these places in the next year. And I'm like, how is that money and where and what and what? It's already done. Right? We just go straight through the bullshit. We straight through the love versus fear, straight through the binary into the knowing, the expecting the Most High, expecting the best. And that's the metaphysics of bridging heaven on earth. That's the metaphysics of creating the correct conditions that allow miracles not just to happen once, but to be a natural part of your everyday life. That's what A Course in Miracles teaches. And I know my fellow students of that teaching, of those teachings that we do. We experience that individually and collectively. Like it just becomes synchronous. Everything begins to sync up. Because we're removing the anticipation. We're removing space and time, the grid, the matrix. Because we're not thinking anymore. We're knowing. We're knowing from a place that is your third eye vision, from a place that is that pineal gland and heart center aligned, that is not trying to like logically think and figure and control things out and like think that we know what's going to happen. I know because I was hurt as a child and this and this and this and this and this happened, and I know that's going to happen again. And that's how I lived for many years, and that's why it kept happening again, because I was anticipating it. I was living in the binary. I was saying yes to that stress, and it created so much stress in my life. So anyway, cutting, I'm doing my writing and my work, and I'm running around and not sleeping enough and all this stuff. I'm sure but it's all perfect, right? So I'm sleeping just fine. But it's like realizing this like underlying, you know, grid of stress, even and in amidst daily meditations. Right? Going and getting acupuncture, getting a massage. I got a massage last month, but even still with it, there's this loop into this stress, this anticipation. And so what I want to paint for you here is the difference between anticipation and expectation, and how we can shift into expecting the best, into allowing the higher order to take care of all the details and to do it for us, so that we don't feel that we have to have the stress of doing all it ourselves, that we can meet whatever is inside of us and all around us under grace in the trinary. And what we're doing, you know, and I know that the little thingy is spinning here, so I don't know when that happens. I don't know if you get to see everything that I'm saying here, or if it just skips right into what I'm saying right now. And it's so interesting because I'm pretty sure, I mean, you know, we're at the end of this Mercury retrograde and all that, so these little things can be quite normal. Oh, you're still here, no skip. Okay. Oh, wow. So maybe just on my end, it's like, woo, woo, woo. And the funny thing is when that happens and like you have like a monster face on, and then you're like, oh no. But when you put yourself out on the video, honey, sometimes it's just like, you got to just have fun and go for it. So thank you for still being here, Will. We're almost done. You know, so all this like anticipation, you know, some of it's yours from your past, from being hurt, or the relationship that really broke your heart, or, you know, the trauma, the violence, whatever all the things are. Some of it's yours, but you know what, honey child? Some of it is ancestral. Some of it is ancient. And it's like not even yours. Yet we're still living under the anticipation. Like, you know, it's that old thing. If you read enough New Age or spiritual books or scenarios, you're like, oh yeah, like, as an example, is that thing of like, if you were brought up with parents who, they didn't even necessarily need to be poor, they could be loaded, but if they had a mindset that was constantly in fear of not having enough, that was constantly lack-based, no matter how much money you have or don't have, you could take on that belief system and then in your life live that, and that causes stress. Any notion of lack causes stress. And so there's that underlying, it affects your digestion. It affects your period, your cycles. If you're a woman, right? Stress, we know this. Like, it affects your, you know, do you get acne? Do you get breakouts because you're holding so much stress? It's like, so we learn over our spiritual healing, our paths, like what belongs to me, what belongs to the ancestors. But you also then, sometimes you feel like, no, I'm a grid runner. I actually get to hold space for my ancestors and do this work. And this is what I've chosen to do, and I'm here to do it. And so you do it, right, under grace. And you might get dragged through the coals a few times while you're at it. But there's at least a conscious like intention of like, I'm doing this work for me and for my ancestors and for this whole grid, you know? And that works. But within that, though, we get to realize, especially when it's a pattern, when it's something in our day-to-day lives that is affecting us, is it yours to work on? Is it something that you can say, you know what, that's not my issue. Let me be present with what truly is the truth of me, getting closer to that level of being able to just sit with expectation of the best. Expectation that the way the movie of this life ends, or the way that your life is in 1 minute, in 2 minutes, or, you know, because really the future doesn't exist. It's all right now. But we learn how to come into the now through relaxing about the future and healing and letting go of the past. And so there is work as a technician, as a matrix technician of yourself through these dimensions of past and future, right? That we do a little tweaking here, we do some healing over there, so that ultimately we can just be like, shh, relax into the now without anticipating the worst, without still rerunning the PTSD. Eye bald. He's bald. He wears a glass eye. He's bald. I mean, he is bald. Oh my God, that's funny. Where'd that come from though? He's blind is what I meant to see in that eye. He still has the eye. He didn't want to remove the organ, but it looks weird. Woo, when he takes the glass eye thing out and you see his eye, it's like, woo, alien Twilight Zone kind of thing. Kind of cool. I'd be like, just don't put your eye in tonight. Just leave it. He'd be like, no, you know, because he like, this is kind of trippy. But he got shot directly in the eyeball. Pardon me. I try not to point. But can you imagine the level of underlying PTSD and stress that all the worked on unraveling all that? But that's just it, is that no matter what it is, and to the degree, whether it's something violent and gunshot like that, or you were molested as a child, or your parents were just never there ever for you to support you or to feed you, and so there's that stress of like survival. It's the stress of feeling like you don't have enough time, stress of feeling you don't have enough money, the stress of you holding back love from yourself. But understanding that these are patterns, and now I have to put my glasses on to read the note board. Patterns of survival, lack, force, right? Subconscious, DNA, the Rubik's cubing and quantum subatomic level. So we talked about this a little bit in our tarot this week, where the Rubik's cubing of the DNA that's happening is the subatomic level of us, which directly relates to the multidimensionality of you being in all places at once and having access to quantum timelines of infinite, eternal variables of the way that you can experience yourself, your life, and show up in this world and in your life. And that can be very scary. That's why we're like, oh, I'll just stick with the blue pill. I don't really want to know. And honestly, that's Christ consciousness, right? It's to boldly surrender under grace with as much love and light as you can muster to that truth within you, to the truth, to speak it, to bridge it, to be it boldly, courageously, under grace and with compassion in the world towards yourself and others. But this is expectation. This is like it's already done. This is like, I'm not going to pussyfoot around you, my brother, my sister. I'm not going to spoon feed you Campbell's soup ABCs, because I know you already know how to read and write, and I know that you have feelings and that you have experience. And I know inside of you there is already a master, so I'm going to speak to that master. I'm not going to speak to the child. If we're going to work on the child, then we'll talk to the child. But right here, right now, we're going to speak to each other's master. We're going to draw down that white light and connect through those master level grids. And if I'm going to play in the children's, park, I'm going to consciously do that. And I'm going to swing on the swings and it's going to feel good. Anticipation versus expectation, pardon me. Ancient patterns of survival, lack. So we know all this stuff has been decalibrating. So it's interesting because I wrote here that anticipation and that binary system is the yes and the no. On the outs, oh yes, we've been learning to say, that's right, in our tarot, these themes have been that we've been learning to say yes, thank you, no, thank you, on the outside in the world when we're invited to a party, a play, a piece of cake, or whatever. No, thank you, that's not for me. Oh, yes, thank you. Learning how to identify it, to boldly and courageously be in your throat chakra, be in your heart, be with all these chakras, these energies calibrated up here to properly sustain those lower energies, those chakras that reside below, so that what is above and below are equanimous, are truly aligned with your truth. We're learning how to bravely do that. We're also learning how to bravely do that within ourselves. That was the theme this week as well, of now that we're learning how to do that on the outside, say yes, please, no, thank you, yes, please, in alignment with your authentic integral self. Now we're like, oh, we're going to take that inside to those voices in our head, to those thoughts. And we can say, oh yeah, no thank you to that one, yes please to that one. Well, we're starting to really master the inner labyrinth of self. And this is a part of coming into greater expectation, because as we give rise and we allow those patterns that we would have unconsciously said, okay, I'll let it slide, yes to, that those are not in harmonic resonance with us, that is the anticipation that allows for stress to have a home, for stress to have a place within us, especially when we don't say no thank you, shut this down because this is not serving me to keep walking with this thought, with this belief, with this pattern. And when I don't shut it down, when I don't say no thank you, and I just say yes, and even if you don't say yes, but you don't say no, you're still saying yes. And that causes that stress. So what we're doing is we're learning to align our word with our heart, and the frequency, energy, vibrationally makes it smoother. Let me just read this. Fear versus love, binary. It can be good, but it can also suddenly get real fucked up, is what I wrote. So I have these epiphanations. I meditate and I have these things and I write these notes for our show. So this is the bottom line. We're learning how to say yes, no. We're learning how to identify, right, the difference between what is truth, what is untruth, what is love, what is fear, what is real, what is an illusion. And I use the word real loosely. Truth is really the word. In saying this, I remember I got this hit, and I was actually dictaphone diarying when it came through, and it was hilarious because I was like, that's what it is. That the binary, but we're used to it. We think that this is it. We think that this is it. Love or fear, good or bad. I'm choosing good. I'm choosing love, right? Yes, and that's our training. That's our training wheels. As we move into knowing, as we move into expecting the Most High, no matter what it looks like, expecting faith, going beyond faith into expectation. That's the trinary. The binary, it's good when we can choose good. It's good when we can choose love, when we can choose love over fear. That's where training. We are training ourselves. We are sharpening, connecting those dots, right? And depending on the situation, the circumstance, your real warrior nature gets to come up and be like, all right, here we go. I'm used to. I see now how I have been anticipating unconsciously, subconsciously, stress. I've been creating stress in my body by anticipating the worst, by thinking that the pattern or that past is still who I am now. And now I'm standing up as my inner warrior to face this shadow down, to detox these tars, so that I can stand and be and reside in greater love and light in this world. And so as we experience the binary, time set, time space, mindset, it's like it's good or bad. So that's what I got, is it's like we can choose good, it can be good, but at any moment, woo, it can go downhill. It can get like real fucked up real quick. And where we're moving, see, and we're used to that. That's the matrix. That's the red and the blue pill. We're used to that. And I'm going to put words in Santos's mouth, but what he's saying, when you don't have to choose either pill, you don't have to get caught in the loop of not knowing you're in a matrix, or now knowing you're in a matrix, and now what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? You're going to fight the man or the whatever. But you realize that there's the other, that there's the trinary, that there's not just the 1 and the 0, but that there's subplanes. 0, 1, -1, 0, 1, +1. There's more options. And where it doesn't have to be just dark versus light, good versus bad, fear versus love, but where it's good and honey, it gets better. What are all the spectrum, gradations, beautiful variables of positivity, of love, of light, of health within you. We don't even know. We are barely scratching the surface. But that's our trinary. That's our Christ consciousness. And granted, yes, we're still here in the world. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? We maybe feel, oh, I have 1 foot in the 3D, 1 foot in the 4D, and I'm learning how to bridge it. And we all are. So we're just having, that's how we hang. That's what we're doing, especially here at 4DT. Someone else just hopped on. Codes. Yo, totally, Lachlan. Full on codes. And honey, if you're just joining us, you know, we're just wrapping up, but I think you might dig this show. You might want to go back to the beginning. And you might dig all of these 4D trinities. Thank you, though, for dropping a line. Total codes. And we're learning, though, in this trinary, when we learn the knowing, the expecting the Most High, expecting the best, instead of expecting the worst, right? Or expecting, or thinking that at any moment the worst thing could happen, right? Honey, we've been through that. It's time now, as it resonates for you, to consider the infinite and eternal progression and expansion of who you are, of what you can be and do and experience, of how the world can show up for you, how the earth can show up for you. When you choose love and only love, God, right? We were talking earlier. Not a person, does not have genitals, not an old dude with a beard in the sky. Unless that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. That'll be your truth. But it's that feeling, realization of oneness, that love and only love, and that is fierce. Fierce. And so as we attune and align with that, we get down with this like, psh, it's all good, everything's perfect. Expecting the Most High, the most bestest. Okay? And I know this is like, you're sitting there probably going like, yeah, I get it, yeah. But like really, like put it in your pipe and smoke it. Put it, you know, in your heart and meditate on it. Chew on it. Get the flavors. Because this is quite extraordinary. This trinary plane in being so different from binary. There's no lack. The degree to the fear, violence, trauma, all the stuff here in the 3D dimension that is getting worked out does not have a resonance in the 4D plane. And depending on your work, on your karmas, on what you do in your world and in your life, yes, you might have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You're bridging the gap. You're holding space for others. And so there's a sense of you know, being a nurse where you're like working with sick people or children, mentally ill folks, maybe in the psych ward, right? But you got 1 foot in heaven and you're like, I know the truth beyond the matrix. I know that love and oneness, the very nature of my being when I get out of the way, when I give it right of way, is the quantum organizer that creates perfection through me, to me, and all around me. And that's expecting, that's getting out of the way and expecting the Most High, moving away from anticipating that underlying stress that can build and build when we expect, when we anticipate unconsciously the repeat painful patterns of the past, or just the worst. And so when we exist in the binary, there's always the possibility of things can get real fucked up real quick. Or it can be love and light. Trinary, it's love and light. It's love and only love. And how many different ways would you like to experience that? And it's like, oh, that's even a thing? That's even a thing? That's what I got this week. When I was meditating and they showed me that, I was like, yeah. But like, what even is that? We get to bridge that. We get to thread that together through the 4D consciousness, right? Which is still a part of it's like it is and it isn't a part of the matrix. The matrix specifically is this 3D collective consciousness, but we know there's love and there's fear here. But we also know that when we think about this, right, in layers, until another way maybe we have to think about it. But then we think about above that, ascending that, is the 4D consciousness, is that one and only one, is that love and only love consciousness. And so we're threading, we're braiding, bridging those grids through the labyrinth of the dualistic planes of the nature that we've been brought up as, that status quo of the matrix of the trinary, to that 4D consciousness where, again, there's love and only love. And which flavor of love would you like? It is such, I mean, do you feel what I'm saying? Maybe you're just like, yeah, whatever, lady. But when I got that download this week, I was like, yeah, I don't know how good I am at practicing that. I don't think we've been brought up in our society at being given the right, or even being given this notion or this idea that it can be a practice of not just like, you know, it's like collectively common. Make a list on the left, what's the pluses, on the right, what's the minuses. Duality, binary. Duality, polarity. What's the good things about this guy that I'm dating? What's the bad things about this guy? You know, it's like, and that's fine. I know I'm putting on these voices, and I'm not downing or demeaning, because this is just a part of being a human. It's a part of the cycle that we're in. But again, what I'm saying is that we have access through knowing that love is the truth, through expecting the best, releasing those parts of the past, which is what we're doing, Dark Nuns. This experience where we're like, this is good, but how does it get better? You know, and often I have students and clients, and at the moment I hear them say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Especially when they're talking about something good and marvelous that's happening in their life. I'm like, okay, wait, let's take a moment. How about we rephrase that? How about you rephrase that to what's the best thing that can happen? So even though it's something good that's happening, an opportunity, a situation, a healing, whatever it is, well, what's the best thing that can happen? And for the divinity of the timelines, and for your time and space, and the higher good of all, the way that all meets, when it is to be realized and experienced for that individual, it will be the most high that that individual can receive, can perceive, can know, can trust, and have faith in, and go beyond that in. That's the good news this week. Dark night of the soul is spinning us out to the other side of the tunnel, back to the light. We've been in the washing machine. Woo. It's been a long cycle, but we're coming near. We're coming near this cycle shifting, this new change, clicking, these new codes, DNA activating, old codes dissolving, dematerializing, so that these new versions of us that are in alignment with trinary, that are in alignment with Christ consciousness, that are in alignment with love and only love, can experience, can express, can play here and bridge heaven on earth. I thank you so very much, everyone, for being here this morning. Now and always, I bless this community. I bless myself, and I bless all these teachings as they come through. And I thank you for being a part of this community. If you're new here and you like this, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell next to the subscribe button so you will be notified of all my videos as I put them out. I do a weekly metaphysical energy tarot forecast. I have over 250 videos on all sorts of stuff, spiritual, metaphysical, here at this channel. I pray and I affirm that everything I share here truly serves your path of spiritual growth and sovereignty. That you come into your regal, royal, majestic realization of self. And the unity that is of you and of all things, that you are one and whole with all. And to learn how to live, to play, to have peace, to relax in that space. And that is very badass. Because you're in the world and not of it. You learn how to see the matrix. You don't have to judge it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to change anything about it. You're like, oh, that's the illusion. Oh well. Clink. You know, whatever. What ifs? If you're guided, sure. Save the whales, work for Amnesty International. You know, there is humanity here. We have heart, we have compassion. Follow your higher self will guide you along your divine path of what, you know, what's going to bring you into, click you into greater alignment with love and with light. And I know for me, after years and years and years of going around with Greenpeace petitions and Amnesty petitions and GMO this and that, you know, I mean, for years being a conspiracy theorist and at the front row of all the political rallies, and now there's a different thing where I'm not even invited. Like my higher self, like there's no invitation. There's actually there's nothing there. It's not that I don't care. We've said this before. When you start to, it's not special. We're all already enlightened. We're just remembering how to vibrate as that, as we heal our lives, as we step out of the matrix, etc. We're remembering that we're already enlightened, and it's like, oh. So I think it's time to wrap up. So I thank you again for subscribing, for commenting, for being here today and every day. If you're interested and you want to find out more about me, go to my website, tuesdaymaythomas.com, and subscribe to my actual website. I send out a monthly love letter, and you will receive a copy of my ebook, which I just did a whole reformation on, called The Higher Self. It's a small mini book, little ebook that you'll receive for free when you subscribe to my website. That book is also available free download. I have another book on iBooks for a free download, the NOWOSPHERE, and I believe the NOWOSPHERE is also available on Kindle if you don't have iBooks. And I'm very soon going to be putting the Higher Self up for free. 2 little mini books, very powerful, all about authenticity, learning to master your spiritual sensitivity, coming into the truth of your heart, how to be present in the power of your authentic integral self in the NOWOSPHERE, because it is a different atmosphere, right, within you and all around you when you really honor your truth, your divinity, show up as that in the world. So please do subscribe at my website. All of my links are down below. I have a couple of books. Besides those little mini ebooks, I have my autobiography called The REIKI Apprentice. Talk about going down the rabbit hole. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, I spent 3 years apprenticing with a Grand Reiki master who claims to have apprenticed with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is also a trance channel, who a part of my apprenticeship was to be in her presence while she channeled Rasputin of Siberia and an entity called the Scroll, channeling all sorts of multidimensional metaphysical healing tools, which is all documented in the book. So that's fierce. If you're like, what? You want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, check out the Reiki Apprentice book. I also have a book called How to Manifest with the Law of Vibration, which I'm very proud of. It's been through a few edits, but now it's here, and it's proud, and it's clear, and it's full of love and light, and codes of realization for you to get to know who you are under grade, with keys, and work to connect you to your higher self. The illusion is big, but you know, it's cool. It's just doing its job. But as we start to awaken, become more aware, right? We want more books. We want to look at more YouTube videos. We want to see, like, read more blogs or talk to other people, have community, and be like, well, what was it like for you? How did you get through, right? To greater love and light. How did you heal this aspect? So this is a beautiful community. I thank you and I bless you. And I'm so very grateful for all the ways that you support me. You can donate to this channel. There's a link down, PayPal link. And I thank you because so many of you already are donating to this channel. So thank you so much for all of your support and your love. I love you. I bless you. Namaste for a beautiful, beautiful week. Blessings, everyone. Blessings, blessings, blessings.